Aloha, Flow Riders. You know what it is. It is time for another edition of The Flow. This is our new series that we are doing. I can speak English, I swear to you. Where we're breaking the month up into 4 because we wanted to make sure that you guys got practical efforts out of whatever it is that we're talking about. And we didn't just want to talk at you. We want to talk with you, right? And that's, weird thing to talk about in a podcast, but this is what we're going to do. So last week we talked about podcasts, specifically in interviewing. And so the second week, we bring on our expert, our SMEs, one of my favorite words. And then the week after that, which is coming up next week, we're going to put you to work. We're going to do some live actionable things. And then in the last week of the month, we do our mailbag episode where we answer your questions about the topic or technically whatever else you want to talk about. So the only thing we're going to remind you is if you want to get your questions in, go over to flow.ecam.com, flow.eca2ms.com, and leave us a video. Better if you do it like this, landscape, but we'll take them even if you do it vertical, Matt. Sorry, Matt. And just get those questions in so you can be ready for the mailbag. Listen, today is going to be awesome because not only did they bring on an awesome guest to help you guys out, but the hardest part of this interview is going to be like not just wanting to nerd out with my friend, because this is seriously one of the dearest friends in the world. I absolutely love her to death. She is an amazing human being, and I can't wait for you guys to meet my buddy, E2. Well, I guess I should say the actual name. It's Elsie Escobar. I just call her E2. You know how it is. I'm going to call somebody what I feel like calling them. I don't care what their mama say.
I love it. It's my fave. I'm good. And I'll take E2 all the time.
See, at least when we're at a conference or somewhere and somebody yells across the room, she's like, damn it, Doc's here.
I love it.
So good. Katie is hanging out with us in the chat. Hey, Katie in the chat. And then there's a bunch of the Flow Riders popped in. So we today are talking about interviewing, but not just from the standpoint of generating content, but more or less about the community building, right? Like how you can make your interviews meaningful. Like Katie is definitely in the chat. Look.
Yay!
So it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's dive in right away. Listen, family, I'm not going to give you guys a long biopic. Listen, we'll put links in. You can go find out all you need to know about her, but you're going to know right away. She's definitely one of the coolest people that we know. So one of the first questions that we wanted to dive into and make sure that our people get this as a takeaway is kind of like what separates a transactional interview, versus something that can leave a dent in somebody, right? That's what Steve used to tell us when I worked at Apple. You want to go and leave a dent in the universe, right? What's going to leave a dent in somebody's heart where they're going to be like, yeah, I got that, right? So how do we set the tone for something like that? And I guess as we're doing it as our overarching piece, what does creative sovereignty mean? Explain that.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I think it actually leads into it. The first thing is that I always lead with what are the conversations that you want to have? Those are one of the key things. And I'm not talking about the podcast conversations that you want to have or the show conversations that you want to have, but the life conversations that you want to have. That's like a tenet that I've found that I often ask the people that I work with, but also myself, because it's, and I'm sure you feel this, Doc, in your head. You're always going like, oh, that really sucked because blah, blah, or that was the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Or I love this show. I really want to talk about this show that you just watched on Netflix. I read a book. I found the coolest Japanese pen ever. Like those are conversations that you want to have. And when you start to see the through line, which I often tell folks to do like a big giant mind map and just start to write down the things that you're obsessed with, the things that you hate, the things that spark joy, the things that make you go, I'm not sure I like that. You'll start to see a through line between that. And that is when you start to recognize that you're crafting an experience of your life in the conversations that really call you to them. You start to naturally move into that place. And so creative sovereignty is your capacity to understand those things that you own, that you are the one that's leading from. And if you don't know that when you're having an interview, if you don't know why you're having this conversation from the beginning, the value isn't going to be transferred to the folks that are listening to you or watching you, because there's going to be a disconnect. I have found myself, especially in podcasts, consuming a lot of podcasts about stuff that I never in a million years would ever listen to. But the passion with which they're speaking about a subject and the depth of how they're going into it is so mind-blowing to me that I then become obsessed with it too. So it's more about that. What is the conversation that you want to have?
I like
Number one thing.
I like this. As that there's an old movie. I like it a lot.
I like it.
And I think this is that kind of struck a chord with me, because I'm forever telling everybody, like, you want to shake off the things that your family members told you when you were a little kid that are holding you back and you don't realize. And okay, so you have these things that you believe about yourself. And then when you sit down and try to take it back to, where did I first hear this? Where is it my thinking, or did somebody plant it in my head? And if you dig deep enough, you can often find the voice that triggered that feeling in you. And then something somebody taught me a long time ago is go back, and if that doesn't serve you well, like if your mama told you was the greatest thing in, walking the streets, hey, good to go. But, you might find out, like, somebody told you were shy, and you probably think about it, it'll be your mom, your dad, your grandpa started that, and then you started acting shy. And so you've been shy your whole life, but that's not really a thing. Shy is not in the DSM-5. It is just something that people put on us that we know is not true, because I'm different after a couple tequilas. Let's just be real, right? Me and my buddy Jill would get on the stage and just sing our faces off after there's been, a couple of, steps up to the bar. So you're not really shy. It's just, you're shy to more. Even that thing about introvert, extrovert. I say everybody's an extrovert around the right people, right? So the idea of being introverted, your thing that makes you want to close off or hide, that's because somebody told you that. So if you can figure out where that voice came from, if it serves you, respect it. If it doesn't serve you, I turn it into a cartoon voice and try to keep saying it to myself that way, so it's not as loud in my head. And when you said the part about, like, almost knowing why you're there, I think I know that's why I'm so hard on trying to get everybody to get their stories out. Because I grew up in a nobody wants to talk to you, kids, keep your mouth shut. The adults are talking, no one wants to hear from you. Blah, thank you. Latinos, what happens? A shoe is coming if you talked out of turn. And so I spent the whole portion of my life afraid to speak up, but yet fearless. Like, I'm afraid of nothing. But then I used to not talk because I just felt the chiclata was coming, or we're going to get in trouble for saying something. So that was super, super dope. I guess, let's take this one step further, because I want to make sure this echoes with everybody, because I guarantee you whatever's squashing your voice is not your voice. Whatever's squashing your voice is somebody else's voice. How can that show up in, say, like a podcast or like an interview?
Oh my God. Sorry. My alarms, as you know, ADHD.
Hey, listen, I got 4 of them this morning.
I know. Excuse me. Okay, so how to show up on, so I was just thinking about that. So I'm working, right now I'm ideating another show that I'm working on specifically,
of course you are.
And there are some, and so I'm but I'm very keyed on the kinds of conversations that I want to have, which is what I lead with. And so I'm leading with that. So let's say with you, Doc Rock, like the kind of conversation that I really wanted, and this is so like specific, where you keep coming up every time this problem comes up. The way in which tech connects with each other, the actual cords, the cables, and the way that the first thing that gets damaged within cables is that connection between, like, the hardware and the little two connecting dots, right? The little hub, the USB hub, and then the other little thing that goes into it. Sometimes that's the weakest link.
Yeah, 100%.
In a lot of tech. Okay, that intersection.
Yes.
That's the conversation I want to have with you. I want to go deep into how nobody talks about that, how like sometimes there's a lot of it. We think like the tech is just the big things like the computer, the phone, the camera. But if that connectivity is messed up somehow, it's not talking to each other. If you don't have the actual cable, it doesn't matter that you have the fancy stuff. It's not going to get, but you're one of the only people that could go that deep into the conversation. You know what I mean?
And so God.
That depth is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not bringing Doc Rock because you've had an amazing, like, professional, expression, and you're so talented about so many different things, and you're like the super amazing tech dude. I want to have that one conversation because I know you can have it, and I know my people want to know all about it. Like, that's what I want.
That is so
that's how it would
brilliant.
show up.
That is so brilliant. That thing you're talking about, we have a phrase about that in the industry. And the person who brought that phrase back to top of mind for me was Ana Gil. And she said, back when she was selling networking products, the conversation is always about respect layer one. Layer one is the cable. And what happens all the time, especially for us here at Ecamm, I just bought this $6,000 Mac. It's fully loaded. I'm sitting here with my Sony camera, and then the camera has another $2,000 lens on a $3,000 camera. There's no way in heck the reason why it doesn't work is this tiny little cable right here. You know what I mean? But if this piece, and everybody that has one of these kids in your house that takes the Ethernet cable and yanks it out instead of pressing a little clip, that destroys the entire thing, right? And so you got all the expensive equipment in the world, or you bought this lovely turbo Porsche, but then you got your tires from Costco, and now you sliding all over the place. Be like, oh, Porsche has terrible traction. No, you bought terrible tires. So yeah, oh my God, that is that is very, very beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, so
I like that in a big way.
Yeah, but and anyway, so let's say my show is what I'm thinking through here are all of the different layers in which the creativity that we have digitally aligns with a lot of analog things and allows and transitional things, meaning even the metaphor of that. What did you call it? Layer one or something like that? That's what yeah. So to me, in my language and the way that I talk about this, that's like the foundation, right? So what are we teaching here when we're having a conversation? We are letting those people that are listening to look at their own lives and go, what is layer one for me? So it's not about podcasting. It's not about creating content. It's about you understanding that if you don't have layer one in your life, then being able to have all this fancy stuff and moving from this to that is not going to work. And that's the core of the conversation I want to have, right? So that's the larger thing. That's what interests me. It's not about, let's do a podcast about podcasting. That's to me very like whatever.
Yeah.
But if I'm leading that conversation so that I can empower you to make choices for yourself, that becomes so much deeper. And it doesn't matter that it's a podcast about podcasting. It'll be accessible to so many more people because we're going so deep into the conversations that I creatively lead. It's my brain that's bringing this out, right? It's my point of view.
Oh my God, who just nailed this perfectly in the most random way? I won't say just because it came out in 2019. It would have been very easy to do a show about F1 and just about the race. It would have been easy to do a show about F1 and just about the drivers. But Netflix was able to do a show about F1 and make it about the team. Yes, the driver and the owner are Ace Cool Boom and, Jack of Spades, they run the whole thing, but it's all a little integral pieces in that. It's meeting the families, the girlfriends, their pets, like the whole 9 yards. So they went deep into making you fall in love. And in a way, the way that they did that show, it has increased the amount of people watching something I've been watching for a long time. Now, a whole bunch of brand new people come in, and some of the bougie nerds are mad that all these new people came up because they got, crazy questions. But I love all the nerds. I love the fact that, one, whole bunch of women are into F1 now. And that was because of Daniel Ricciardo, who's, no longer racing at the moment. But hey, he was a handsome dude. So all these girls jumped in. And then now there's great conversations about F1 with all kind of people. And before, I used to be the only person with my Ferrari hat on in Starbucks. Now I can see all myriad sorts of people. And I see somebody in a Mercedes hat, I give them the stink eye, just like it was the Raiders and the Patriots or something, But
Oh my God.
it's really incredible how you're able to do that. So I guess one important thing to make sure that we cover is what are hosts getting wrong when it comes to thinking about it like this? Because we want to make sure the flow riders don't copy that.
Yeah. I think that the key thing is first you have to know what you stand for. And again, going back, it's a little bit of a not selfish. It's an introspective point of view, right? It's more about you getting to know yourself, because if you start leading with from the outside in and you start to think like, this is going to be a great show for me to, I don't know, to network with people that I want to work with in the future. This is going to be an amazing opportunity for me to become an expert in my industry. That is more from the outside in, right? It is your capacity to be sovereign, meaning the boss of your own self, and understand when you step into a room, you stand for something, whether it doesn't have to be like a huge thing. I'm saying like it's an internal feeling where you understand that sense of who you are. You have to start from that place, because if you don't, then you're going to, this is what happens. Should I have this person on the show? I don't know if I should have this person on the show. Who's the next person? Or you go on Threads. Hey guys, I'm opening up. I need to interview people about these 3 things. Is this you? And it's like, sometimes I feel like that's probably not the best thing to do, because you are allowing the outside to lead you versus what I just told you before. I want to have a conversation about that connectivity, about those little bits moving together. Who is the best person that I can talk to about that? And then I can reach out to you. And then what if I say, hey, doc, that was amazing. I want to have another conversation about the same thing. Who can you suggest that can take it deeper for me, that gives me another layer about the cables and the connectivity and the hardware, things that I'm looking for? Then you can go, oh, you know what? So-and-so would be an amazing conversation to have about this. So that becomes a little more mindful versus anything else.
I got this. I got to show you this right here. Actually, let's check out my new scenes here. Let's do this. Let's hit you up here, Big Steve. SL says, creative sovereignty. Boom. Value received. Hey,
I love it.
When we can hit it out the gates, just starting out, fam, that's what we're talking about. Man, there's so many strings to pull. Oh my goodness. And you're right. I see this post so often, and when you said it, like, I'm having not only the thoughts, I've seen this post, but I'm having visual flashbacks of the actual post where someone says, hey, I'm making a show about XYZ. Is that you? And I'm like, yeah. And I also feel you said something very poignant. A lot of people would want to get a guest on their show because it's going to help their show grow. And I'm going to get in trouble maybe. I did something crazy. I had signed up for one of these podcast dating services, and I won't name the specific one because I don't want to throw that person under the bus. And it felt exactly like when I used to work in the club and I used to watch all the little Uzi hit jobs going on. People be hitting on each other. And it's like, yo, how could you look at that person and see the things that they're doing or the people they're hanging with and think that that is even the same scene? Like, you just don't even look in the same scene. And yes, there are opposite track or whatever, but sometimes it was just blatantly obvious, like this wasn't going to work. And also the level of can I buy you a drink emails I got in that podcast dating service type thing. Whereas basically, for guys who don't understand, let me explain this better. There are services out there that is designed to make in-kind people meet in-kind people so you can get guests on your show. But when you put that in the hands of me first, I want to say marketers, I'll blame it on my people because it's safer. At least I can blame my own people. When you put it in the hands of me first marketers everybody is like, oh, you let me get on your show, I can bring you XYZZZ. All right. It's almost like, hey girl, I'm rich. Like that always works. I don't even know how to
Mm.
describe it. It was very not good feeling. And your inbox was constantly flooded with like, there's no way you're a match for my show. Katie would tell you, we'll get podcast requests where people are saying stuff that makes no sense. Like you have not watched a single episode of The Flow, and yet you
Yeah.
want to come and be on the show. Let me see what she said, because she probably says it more elegantly than I did. So let Katie speak. She said it's really easy to let the incoming messages distract you from your purpose, your vision, and the needs of
Yeah.
your community. See, I told you that's why she's
Absolutely.
the smart one. I'm just here to be cute.
No, it's true. It's because you get pushed off of your own game. That's life. Life is going to be there for you to be, you literally, you know, ducking and weaving the whole entire time. And again, going back to that first step, that foundational source, when you're doing that kind of moving back and forth, like I was like point guard playing basketball when I was, in high school. But I remember that you had to get very low and you have to be able to move the upper body in such a way that people don't know what's going on, right? But if your feet aren't planted on the ground to be able to move forward, you're going to, like, it doesn't matter how fancy you are up top, right? So and so you have to be grounded. You're always going to get somebody coming at you. And to your point there, when you were talking about everybody's going to be wanting a little bit, especially if they start to see that you start to shine, y'all. The minute you start to sparkle, when the world starts to see that you got that thing, everybody wants a little bit of that. Everybody wants a little bit of that. And so when they come in, they're only there to grab a little bit of that. And you have to be able to go like, I'm going to shine bright and have this like little sort of protection thing around you. And that takes actually a lot of energy because you can be thrown off your game. Somebody can convince you that they're really good for your show. And you're like, you know what? I have a little resistance, but maybe I should just step out of my own way and like make this step and whatever. And then you do it and it totally fails. So you have to continually align. What do I stand for? What's the conversation I want to have?
Oh my God, people, let me make sure you hear this clearly. First of all, I just found out something new because we have Diana Gladney at shooting guard, and then Itu is going to handle point guard. Yuri from Shore also is a baller, so he thinks he could play guard.
No
but
way!
yeah, Yuri from Shore. Yo, when I was in Chicago, we were in the gym like in the morning, attempting to play basketball. He's actually good. We just need a strong center and another forward. Because I can do weak side forward, but anyway, yeah, that's super funny. You said something important, and we're talking about owning your editorial lanes, like
Yeah.
knowing like this is what I talk about, this is what I stand for. When she said, you got to know what you stand for, I just immediately went to stand in the place that we live. Sorry, I have that stand in the place that we work. Now, sorry, REM is coming, but you have to make sure that you're leading with your voice based on your boundaries and your alignments and not just chasing some sort of trend that takes you away from your thing or like, let's see, putting somebody on your show that just a big name. Like it doesn't really bring value to your people other than being, say, starstruck or, maybe that person come to gas themselves up. So,
Yeah.
All right. So now we got to get into how these people can put this to work. How does this sort of interviewing people based on that thing that you feel, that core gut feeling, how does that evolve you as the host? Because I think it's also important that we are growing while we're doing this as well. Because that means your audience is probably growing because they ride with you because you guys have similar things.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. So this is really interesting. And only happens when you do it. Okay. Because step one is figuring out what you stand for, that creative sovereignty, that real understanding of the conversations you want to have, all the things we just talked about. That's like a thing that you have inside of your own head. That's something that you're working on. And then comes the act the doing. When you start with the doing, let's say I've just started and I want to have that conversation that I told you about, Doc Rock, about the connectivity, about all that stuff. And I'm all ready. I know what I want to do it. And then since it's one of my first times trying it this way, I might fumble the ball a little bit. We might not get as deep as I wish we could have gotten. There might be some fumbles, or there might be some time where I'm like, oh man, I really sucked doing that. Even though your intention was clear, that's okay. Because the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And the more confident you'll be able to be, the more in which you can allow for the conversation to happen and also stop you. Because I also know you, Doc. Sometimes we get to a different place. I'm like, no, we got to talk about this.
This has been the flow. I'll see you guys next week. I'm kicking it. What are you talking about?
So then I would have to, and you get better at stuff like that, where you can allow guests to continue on their path and then go like, well, wait, hold up. Let's get back to, whatever it is. You might have your own way, but you only learn how to do that by doing it. So there is an element of being able to set that intention, and then you have to do it. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you'll refine yourself as a host. So I can't say, unfortunately, folks that are here and in the future, I'm not going to be able to say, do 1, 2, and 3, these 3 steps every time, and it's going to be the magical interview of your life. No. You can do 1, 2, 3, and it's still going to suck or surprise you or whatever, right? But the more you do it, the better you get. The better you get. And if you don't plan, it's unfortunate because there's so much. There's so many times when I hear folks, I just want to go with the flow. No, no disrespect to the flow, but I just want to go with it and just whatever, keep it organic.
Yeah.
And you know what? Sometimes you have to have boundaries because nature thrives in boundaries. The necessity of nature is to create boundaries around it. Like you don't have, like springtime is coming. If you do weird stuff, like if you don't plant right now, you're not going to get the harvest in the fall. You're just not. Nature doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
So whatever, but it's organic, y'all. I have to use the rhythm of what's happening at this time. And so your rhythm is the foundation. It's like, we're going to start here, go here, and go here, and then allow for whatever happens, right? That framework has to be there. You have to allow that to be a touching point. So I do believe in going with the flow, but also, again, nature thrives with boundaries. The end.
Listen. Oh my goodness. Okay, listen. I know why Katie said, we're going to book E2 on, because she's over here at school and then reminding you that, when you start to go adrift, you got to bring it back. So I want to give you guys permission as flow riders, and keep this in mind. Clubhouse had this beautiful thing. Of all of the weird things Clubhouse had, one thing that got popular during Clubhouse was let's reset the room. Right?
Oh.
And if you can remember that when you're doing your show, and now I'm going to give it to you guys as the flow riders. If you're here and you're trying to get some value, and yes, I could easily go. If we started talking about pins right now, you guys have no idea. This conversation is over.
Yeah.
We're gone. And we'll be in it and just forget about it. You guys are allowed in the chat, if ever, to be like, hey, reset the room. And then it'll help the host come back in. I would appreciate my community telling me to reset the room, as opposed to just assuming that it's all good. And then you listen to the interview later and you're like, where the heck did we go?
Yeah.
All right, let's check out what the flow riders are saying, because we got some good ones in here. Matt said, learn to listen. Don't just wait to talk. This is very big. I notice this all the time when people are having, let's say, I won't say arguments, having discussions where they disagree. I feel like half the time the other person is just pouncing, waiting for their turn to talk. And you'll find out within about 5 minutes, they're saying the exact same thing. They just don't realize that they're saying the same thing. And SL says, I love it when the host gets a guest to uncover something special we may not have known or heard
Mm.
before.
Oh,
Often
yeah.
some kind of often something kind of private, bring it back. So we feel like we're in the inner circle. Yes, loving this conversation. Oh my God, this is ever so good. You know, it's funny. I was going to say to you, like, how do you bring someone back when they start to go sideways, and you actually covered that automatically. But what I want to connect it to, since you started me on this whole connector things, this is going back to standing for what you're standing for and being
Mm.
grounded in sort of what your purpose is, because you will realize right away when it starts to drift, I need to, pull this sucker back over, or, the GPS recalculating.
Yeah.
Maybe even get a graphic for your show that says recalculating, and then you can sort of come back to it. All right. So this is something that came up last week when we were talking, like, asking questions, and Jeff C and I fight about this all the time. I kind of don't necessarily like the predetermined questions. Now, I might
Mm-hmm.
write some down because I don't want to forget, but I'm not
Yeah.
going to share it with you so that you know what I'm going to talk about. Whereas Jeff likes to share all the questions with the people so they know what they're talking about. And I won't say one is right or wrong. Okay, yes, I will. Don't tell Jeff I said that, though. No, it's just I like just being able to vibe. But then you did something when you said, hey, it can be organic, but it can't be that organic. Like, you can't just plant a tree in the middle of the ocean. You're gonna need some
Yeah.
sort of substrate for it to grow in, and that one kind of sticks. That one kind of sticks. So when you get to a place, and sort of touching on what Steven just said, how do you ask better follow-up questions? Because I think you and I both will understand this. Well, actually, I'm going to leave it there because I almost screwed that up. Anyway, how do you ask better
Yeah.
follow-up questions?
I think it's twofold. First, you have to listen, because I have an issue sometimes because of my brain. I've been even in my own shows in the past where I've been recording with my co-host and they say something completely brilliant, but I have been so caught up with the next input, or I'm looking at our notes and I want to move to the next thing, that it's in post. I notice in post, I go, oh my God, I didn't even respond. I didn't even react. And sometimes it's a joke. Like my co-host had made a joke and it was hilarious and I missed it. I was right there. So listen. And I'm still absolutely listening for sure. And the other thing is, don't be afraid of the pause. Y'all, don't be afraid of the pause. Like if you said something and I go, oh my God, it's like, it kind of was like either shocking or like, whoa, that was deep. It's okay for you to go, that was deep, or okay, hold. And like look at your notes and kind of reassess what your next question is, because you know what? At least for a lot of podcasts, there's editing. You can edit that out. You can edit your pause out. You can edit your reframe out. You can edit your moment of follow up out, because we think we just have to fill that air. We feel like we have to keep talking and moving forward. You don't. And I know it's uncomfortable also on the other end if I'm like, hold up. And I look down and there's quiet, quiet, quiet. It might feel to the guest that something's wrong. So you can very easily just look at them, especially with video, and just be like, hold on there for a second, or just go like, I have to take a moment. That was great. Hold on one second. And then you just can say that and then go again, right? And then really hit them with something strong. I do feel that going back to the conversation that you want to have and keeping things moving forward, that's when post-production really comes in a lot of the time, where you allow yourself that pause to have that follow-up question. Because for some of us, follow-up questions are hard, and we need to like build up that sort of momentum and confidence to do that follow-up, because sometimes follow-up questions are a more of a challenging question than the softball, not softball, I can't say that, than the initial question, right? That's when you go like, well, what are you talking about? How about this data that I have in front of me? Because that's the other thing too. Sometimes you have to follow up with data. You have to follow up with information that may not be what they know, or maybe they're saying something you didn't know about. And you're like, well, what I learned at first was XYZ, and you're saying not that. Can you explain that to me a little bit more? But you need time for you to realign yourself to be able to do that. And that takes, again, skills and confidence.
Listen, in my community, we have a saying. And if I give any advice to any of you guys, if you can come up with a saying for it, everybody has these random ones, like these to be the knowledge bombs, or here's a gem. Some people have a little sound for it. But in my community, and even I do it when I'm a guest on another person's show, if I know I say something that I want to make sure that they heard me on, I would say, let that marinate.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to leave it there for a second. Like, let that marinate. And then you get the nod together and everybody knows this is where I need you to let that absorb all the way down into your gut. And then another tactic that I do all the time, which is going to be crazy, and she said it, do not be afraid of the pause.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure you guys hear this. Do not be afraid of the pause. Now, they told me once, if you say it 3 times, they will remember it. Do not be afraid of the pause. That in an interview technique is what is known as, we call it, my teacher taught me, is dead air chicken. When you're going to ask something that really needs to resonate with your people, don't be afraid to let it sit there. Because, it used to be in the interview, you want to be fast paced and moving, that you don't want to have any dead air. And even in the Instagram world where everything is fast, I've seen these people doing an interview and they're talking. One's really funny. There's a Japanese comedian and his friend, and they do this thing where they take a single Japanese word that means like 6 different things and they go down the list. And somewhere in the middle, there's the one that's, slightly risque or ribald, and they just look at each other like, and that's literally like 4 or 5 seconds. And that's illegal in short form video. And they do it every time. And that's what makes it good, is they just like, oh, that one just caught me like a box of rocks. I hit the table so hard that watch think I fell down. I'm not that old, watch.
Oh my God.
I am not that old, watch. Okay, so one important thing, and I want to make sure we cover this. Actually, let's do a quick Flow Writer check-in before we dive further. SL says, guilty. I have to remind myself to stay in the moment. Oh my God, the pause. Thank you for that reminder. Sometimes the guest fills the space with more. And this is where it's your show, SL. This is where you stop them and go, hold on, wait a minute. Pump your brakes, Auntie. You said something so valuable. I want to make sure they heard it. Can we back up and say that again? Mm-hmm. And then when they say it again, when she stops, you go, okay, people, let that sink in, or let that marinate. Whatever the Canadian version of that is, SL. Let that freeze. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my God,
think about great journalists who've mastered the follow-up versus the lame ones who just take the first answer. That's
no, and it's hard. It's not an easy thing. It takes a lot, again, self-knowledge, skill building, rehearsing, practice. It's a craft. And I think a lot of the time we don't work on that. Like I've been, in terms of even just creating like videos where I'm reading off a script and stuff like that, when you start the process of reading off a script sometimes, and you have to edit yourself. That's the other layer of here. So I'm reading off a script. I'm not a bad reader. Like I can read well. It sounds like I'm talking. But there's times when I find myself going from sentence to sentence, like it never stops, and I just will plow through it, and I can make my voice sound great, but I'm not landing the points. And so when I have to edit, I'm just like, could I have just taken a moment? Could I have not mixed the end of the period with the beginning of the other sentence? Could I have just taken a breath in between that so that I could have had more room to edit better? No, because I was the one that didn't do that well. So that's something I have to call on myself. I have to go, slow down. You don't have to rush. You can have a pause. You can always edit pauses out. It's much harder to add a pause in so that you can hear it well, So all of that stuff is super important.
Man, this is so good. This is so good. I have a thought process. My brain is over here twirling like 100 miles an hour. Because before we get into the community aspect of it, I want to make sure that we're giving our people something that they can grow upon, that they can take this info and use it, because now we're trying to teach them to stand in their spot. We're trying to teach them to own their spot. Yep. And we're trying to teach them to own their spot at the same time, bring out, good interview questions, build their community and things of this nature. So what is the best way to shift the topic or shift the tone so that you can bring it back to what you're trying to give to your audience? Because in a way, you're trying to feed your audience. You're trying to give them what they want. So if you feel like it's going a little sideways, and you mentioned about being your boundaries and your alignment, how do you shift the topic back?
I think that's where the core anchors are really important, meaning those key, maybe this is where not you prepare, not by having the exact questions written out, because sometimes some people really love that, and that's actually good because that is a really good way to transition it. But there's times when, even if you just have like an overall outline, maybe 3 things that you have, or that you really, really understand what you want to get out of this conversation, like what's the key thing, the key answer, or the key dialogue that you need, and whether you have or have not. But you have to have, I feel you do need to have some kind of notes, whether it's like 3 high-level talking points. And then if you go like, oh my God, it's going off the rails. We're now talking about Japanese fountain pens. This is not what we started to do from the get-go, okay? So then you go, wait, hold. Let's go back to, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's when you look back and you go, hold on one second. Let me look at my notes, or wait, let me just touch base with what I really wanted to talk with you about. And you make them feel important versus this is your thing. It's like, hold on, I want to make sure that I get to really understand this about your work, or I get to really dive deeper into that thing that you wrote, I don't know, whatever that might be.
yeah,
And that
like
allows them to switch, because I think when you're interviewing somebody you don't know very well, a lot of the time they really want to bring value to you and they just want to keep on talking. And so giving them permission to realign themselves so that they can realign their room, if you will, on their own, you can guide them to that and go like, let's go back to this. Right?
Yeah, the good host say, hey, wait a minute, you said something so powerful. Alex, bring that back. Let's slow this down. Let's make sure that this doesn't go miss. Because, oh my God, that deserves to live. So you can gas them up and at the same time bring them back to an anchor. Oh my God, we are cooking today, people. I don't know if you guys know we are cooking. All right, so we want to put you guys on point. Before your next interview, ask yourself, what do I genuinely want to understand? And what's really cool, depending on how your audience is set up or your community even better, is if you know you're going to have a person on, you can kind of pre-collect questions so you kind of know what they're hoping to get out of it. And this will go as far as to helping you match people to your show that match your show.
Yes.
Right? Because, of course, would I like to have Lewis Hamilton sitting there next to E2? Absolutely. It'll be a killer conversation. He don't know how to podcast. What he going to bring to the table? I'm going to just sit there and be like, dude, how many G's when you hit the turn in Azerbaijan? And he's going to be like, oh, it's like 8 G's. And y'all will be like, what? What kind of G's? So, it's very important that you find a way to bring it back. I'm going to start singing the song. Bring it back, bring it back. Okay. So in making sure that we get this working, and I do want to touch on the community angle real quick. What would you say is, especially for the ones starting out and trying to build a community, what is something that you think the independent podcasters struggle with? Or like, hey, let me rephrase this. Let me rephrase this the way I always ask this question. What is it that you wish people would ask you, but don't?
Oh my gosh. About community?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I know this. I think one of my biggest challenges that I've seen with a lot of folks, well, mind you, since I've been around for so long, I've seen that it used to be a lot easier to engage with community in podcasting. In terms of, it used to be easier for them to connect with you. It's like it was easier overall, even though it was challenging technically at times, right? It was harder to give podcasts feedback, maybe. But it was all via email. There was a lot of email stuff. There was a lot of early Twitter conversations happening back in the day. There was a lot of social media platforms that no longer exist where people used to engage and it was basically the same little posse of people and it was a little bit smaller. Nowadays, because we have so many inputs and so many outputs and so many ways to engage with people's content, and you don't know where they're watching or where they're listening or where they are on social or news or emails, it's a little bit harder to really just say like, hey, let me know what you think, and then people will just do it. So my thing is, you, again, creative sovereignty, you tell your people how to engage with you first and you be specific. You don't go like, hey, you can connect with me on Instagram and Threads and YouTube and I have an email and you can call the show. Like all of these things. That's a lot. You tell them not just necessarily just to kind of like have a way to contact you, but you have to manage the community too. If it's spread up in 10 separate spots, you're not going to find the conversations. So I've always been a fan of email myself. I'd rather say email the show. There are other people that have, like you guys, you have like a landing page where you always say the same call to action. This is where people go. There's other folks who have like a form. That's great. There's people who really engage on Instagram only, which is really great for them. Like they would go like, we just posted an Instagram carousel of what we covered during the show. Please go over there and tell us what you think about the show, because they know the majority of or like to engage with their content. They know the majority of their audience is on Instagram a lot more than any other platform. And that's where they get the engagement. So that's what they're doing. But they're very specific. The other thing that I tell my people all the time is you can't say something like, even though I just said it because it was easy, tell me what you thought about the show. You can't just do that. You have to say something specific.
Yes.
What did you think about what Elsie said about creative sovereignty?
Yes.
Do you agree with what Elsie said about the pause? Something like that. Tell us about that. So, because that's very specific and more people might go like, yeah, I don't even know what creative sovereignty is. She was like talking like, I still don't get it. That's fine. That's great feedback because you get a chance to create more content about it. You, Doc Rock, can email me and go, oh, this person's confused. Can you give us another whatever? I'm like, oh, I'll send you some audio feedback. Like there's just a lot more. And then the person feels heard. They feel seen. So you got to be very specific about how you ask. And that is how you build community, by making sure you're specific. This is how you engage with me. And then you highlight them like you're doing right now with the thing.
Love it. And, I want to add something real quick to the Flow Riders. It's helpful when you can set the tone for your community so they know the type of questions to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Because although in a live stream, I can ignore questions that I wouldn't want to give to my host or wouldn't match them or might take them on a tangent on purpose. if you set the tone of the way you posit questions, you're going to let your community start to understand what kind of questions they should posit so people don't
Yep.
just come in and ask crazy questions. One thing that still rubs me sideways in the worst way, and it's so hard, and we work really hard to try to tell people, and normally Paul or Katie would, try to help, or Caleb, someone's in the chat. We're having a deep conversation right now, and we're talking about all myriad sorts of things, and someone will ask like an Ecamm Tech question. And I'm like,
Yes.
son, like, yo, this is the flow, dog. Ken and Glenn coming on next week. Jill and I are on all the time. You could ask those any time of day. People come to my show on Saturday and ask me Ecamm support questions. And I'm like, play it. I don't come to McDonald's and ask you to make me a burger when you're at home, right? I'm going to wait till you're at McDonald's. Like, kind of read the room, kind of feel that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And let me say something that Matt had real quick, and then we're going to hit you with the lightning round. My man Matt had a really good one here. It said, I have a North Star theme for the interview and 3 or 4 sets of questions. When the conversation wanders, I can always come back to the North Star. And I like that, Matt, because if I know for a fact that, Itu is an expert on 2 major things, and both of them are valuable to my audience. And although we set the tone of the interview was going to be about interviewing, if for some reason we got into conversation about, women and women empowerment and things like that, this is the month where I gotta let sis cook. So I could actually take it there and still bring value and be like, dudes, don't get it twisted. This affects us too, because we got to be on this planet together. Right. So I could let her cook there and even invite that to a certain extent because of what Matt said. But I know she might go here. And if she does, I got some anchors here where we can make that match. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And I will have no problem with you aligning things in the way for sisters. I grew up in a house with 7 women. I was the only dude, so I know better. I'm not, hey, some of y'all dudes, y'all need to figure it out, Listen, you and I both know Threads is crazy, and people say the dumbest things on Threads, and it's kind of entertainment to me, but then it also kind of reminds me that humanity is doomed. Some dude came in and said, women never created nothing. What did you guys ever create? And my first post was, dude, I don't know if you know how this works, but somebody created you, stupid. So she probably wish she had it. Anyway, let's get into the lightning round. God. This is super funny. What is one habit interviewers need to drop ASAP?
Oh, good Lord. I think one of the key things is that this is what please don't do this. And it's a pet peeve of mine. So, thank you, Doc Rock, for coming on my show. Tell us about yourself. What, and you're like, or introduce yourself. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Like, don't make people do extra labor. It's up to you. Do you understand the brilliance, which is Doc Rock? Like, he literally can talk about anything. If I can say, hey, Doc, tell me why you love to go to Japan so much. That's why you're on your show. Why don't on my show? Because we're going to talk about Japan. Let's go. What was your first experience in Japan? Right? That's much more specific.
Way tighter. Way tighter. Oh my God. That is so cute. So many people do it, and it kind of drives me crazy. All right.
It's lazy. Sorry. Maybe I shouldn't have said that.
No, you can say it.
It's
I'm
lazy.
down with it. Somebody got to be like me and say the tough stuff. Okay, this is another one. This is Katie had the best lightning round questions. This one I love. What is one sign you're interviewing from ego?
When you keep talking about, like, when you keep on bringing yourself into the mix all the time. Mind you, I don't want to tell you not to talk about, because that it is actually part of being creative sovereignty for you to put yourself into the conversation. That is why people are coming. It's because they want to hear you have this conversation. That is what I feel. But if you're just always centering yourself, that is just a no.
Okay, so follow-up question. How do you put yourself in it, but make sure you're inclusive of your squad?
You mean the people that are listening? I have a perfect example. Speaking about women. So early on, she's no longer podcasting, but there was I think her show is called Soul Work for Moms. And she was a client that I was working with. And one of the key things that she did really well was she would have conversations with other moms, experts and things like that. She was a mom and she was having expert people come in, doctors or psychologists or whatever, therapists, all things like that. And one thing she did so well is that every time there was an expert coming in and giving specific details about things like, put your, I don't even know, whatever, like when you're going to wean them, from breastfeeding or something. And so she would always stand up for the people who weren't in the room, the types of moms that she wasn't like. So she would go like, how would that work for like a teenage mom? Or tell me how that that workflow or the way in which you're weaning the kid is happening if you're a single parent. And so she, even though she wasn't those things, she would make sure that when she asked that question, the person on the other, like her audience felt heard. So she was inclusive about all moms versus the mom that is like her. And I really appreciated that because it always made me as a listener go, oh yeah, it must be a lot harder if you're a single parent. You know what I mean? And I didn't, and it just made me put myself in that position. That's how I would handle that.
I freaking love it. I love it. Okay. We got two more. This one is absolute gold. What's one sign that you are interviewing from your alignment or from your sovereignty?
Oh, that is so good. That actually is a really good question. When there is that, and it happens afterwards, when you are wrapping up and time has, it's hard to kind of put a pin in that sometimes. At least this is what happens with me, is time has happened or passed so fast. I feel like I've learned something, as a conversationalist, I've learned the thing I wanted to learn. My brain has expanded, and then I feel really high, really energized afterwards. When I'm done with that recording, I feel like I can't wait to edit. I can't wait for the next part. I can't wait to have my people really hear that from a really genuine place, because as marketers, we have to hype things up, right? Regardless of whether we feel that way about our stuff all the time. But there's points where you're just like, oh my God, that was so good. And you really, really, really feel it without anybody else knowing it.
Man, that's how that was last week. Katie and I got off the show and I was like, damn, Katie, that was good. She was like, yeah, I like what you said. I almost feel like I'm high. So, the show was good when you feel like the edibles kicked in after.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Anyway, all right. So speaking of which, last and final question for the speed round is, a great interview feels like ...
Oh my gosh, you know what? It's so cheesy that I'm going to say this, but it's like a great interview feels like you didn't plan it. It feels organic. It feels like it was easy. Afterwards.
It ain't easy being cheesy, sis.
Afterwards. But the truth is, you prepared for it. You invested a lot of time figuring out who you are, what's the conversation you're going to have, why this person's coming to have a conversation with you. Like, there's a lot of intention. There's a lot of work. There might have been times of pause. Maybe everything didn't go smoothly, but you got it. You got the tape. You got the shot. Like afterwards, even if it's not perfection in terms of audio, like in the way that, it's not completely live to tape, as in like you could just put it out there and you have to do zero editing. That's sometimes what we aim for, at least for me. But you have the tape, you have the shot. So to me, that's it. Ease, and you have the shot.
Okay, ease and cheese Family, this is an incredible conversation. And I have to apologize for the next question because this is just a doc question and it's a little selfish. But I have somebody here who I think can help me nail something that I've always had in the back of my head. And I think I've only ever talked about this with Diana Gladney and maybe Mary Lou. And I'm going to be vulnerable and put this out in the street because it's not something that, again, it's not something that I talk about a lot. But I think one person who could help me add another brick to this foundation would be E2. Okay, bestie, here goes. As a person who's built a lot of their scaffolding around empowerment and making sure that the voiceless have a voice, I spend a lot of time not putting my marginality front and center, but it's there. And I want to respect it and I want to give it space, but I neither want it to be a shield or a cape. I don't know if I'm making this make sense, but you humming, so I know we're on the same boat. All right. How do I respect my marginality, let it live in its power, but it's not that badge of honor, right? And so, like, I do get there are the POC podcasters, there's the Black podcasters where the Black is first, or the Latino is first, or the female is first, or the trans is first, or, you know, whatever other marginality you might be in. Like, we are all, you know, BIPOC creators, BIPOC, however you want to pronounce it. But, like, how do I respect that without making it so in your face? Because I think you can see that I'm Black. I'm also half Latino, and somehow people never catch that part. You know what I mean? So it drives me insane, and it keeps me up at night. My ADD spends way too much time on it, so I need you. Love you.
Oh gosh, this is so deep.
Sorry.
So part of it, I think, is something that was brought to my attention early on and about like a little over 10 years ago now, is that I can pass in rooms. I can pass in rooms. That's a big privilege that I didn't know I had, right? I just knew that my identity was part of my identity, and I live my identity. Like I'm wearing an El Salvador shirt. I have like El Salvador, I have I am through and through from El Salvador, and I'm so proud. But I also pass. So there's a lot of people who like just saw me and didn't see anything else. And then when I started to speak up for my people, when I started to step into my identity fully, like loudly, I had a lot of people go, oh, now you're talking. Now, like, we didn't even know. So now you decide to take that card out. And I thought, at first I wanted to fight. At first
I kind of wanted to fight with you. I mean, what do you mean card out? I had the card out 24/7. I just wear it on my neck.
I was like, I got really upset. And that's when I was like, I shut up, right? Because I had to do what I taught. You got to shut up and listen. And I asked what part of that feedback was true. And I kind of sat there and I went, there's an element of me in the way that I move in the world that I don't have to live with being called whatever marginalized identity it is. I can morph. That's a privilege that I hadn't fully owned. And so I started to go, how can I do exactly what you're saying? How can I be fully myself without constantly putting flags up and like, this is who I am and whatever. So I started to know that I started to see the privilege. I happen to be in certain rooms where when I come into that room, I am the only person of color, which is really sad to say, especially because, like I said, I pass. So I get to be in these rooms because of that sometimes, and folks are unaware. And so I get an opportunity to walk in these spaces take up space and be in representation of a lot of people. And I really take that as a responsibility. And it's something that I didn't choose, but I get. So I do it in a soft way, right? And I also have you also have to think, Doc Rock, about leading from the way that you choose to lead. I love the way that I lead is I lead from behind. That is something I do well. I like to be the scaffolding for people to do their thing. There's some people who are really bold and bright and in your face. Good for you. I am not that I'm not that person. I'm not the one that's like, I'll do it. You know, I'm the one that's out there going like, you have the tools, you could do your thing, you are amazing. I lead from behind. And what I want is for me to lead you in such a way that you take up and you go like, I don't even know how I got here, but here I am. And I'll just be back there going like, it's all you. It's all you. That's how I lead. So you have to lead from a place of where you feel comfortable and have that be enough, because all of our people have different types of strengths. And so the sovereignty of it all is you have to be a sovereign over your own way of moving in the world, because there's going to be times when, like what you just said, you're like, I'm going to ask you because I know you can help me do this. That's my spot. Like, you're right. Like, you can't ask all the people. Sometimes you're going to have to, sometimes you need a doctor. You're going to go get the doctor. You're not going to go to your, friend down the street that just happens to be a neighbor that knows doctor things. You're going to go to the doctor. So when you live into and you own your leadership, you own your gifts, that you're leading. And that's enough. I think that's how I do it. But I also know my preference is to lead from behind. I don't like to be, hey,
look at me.
This is what I am.
Man, see, I knew you could help. Sorry, people. I had to steal one. Because I had my buddy on. And that was super good. It was super deep. And like I said, sorry, people, I had to go dig a hole, but I needed to know, because it's something that messes with me a lot. And I always want to leave space for it, but like, I just want to be like in your face about it. And I am a person that leads from the front. I just choose not to lead from the front about that.
Yes.
Right.
No,
I'll lead from the front as a nerd. Right. I want to be respected for that, And that's because I grew up in a time where you almost had to turn it off. And yeah, I don't know if it's right. I'm not going to sit here and say I got the answers, because if I had the answer, I wouldn't have answered that question.
No, and what's really even more challenging is, and not to bring this back to this type of conversation, I don't want to derail the conversation into audio video, but there is an element that the reason that I loved podcasting so much is because when I was in Hollywood, because I was doing the acting thing for a long time, the way that I was labeled simply because of how I looked, I only fit into the Latina roles. Like, nobody would ever, and this is really weird, nobody would cast, like when I was doing it, this was the early aughts, okay, guys, late 1990s, beginning of the 2000s. So I would get the character that I was supposed to play, and it would say it's like a hot Latina, a funny Latina. And then I would walk into a room and I would do it, which I felt really awkward. I've never been like, hey, I'm not that girl. And so they would go, oh, you don't fit because your eyes are green, or because like, do it with the accent and do it faster. And I'm like, you guys, that's not even how I was raised. Like, I'm not that. So there's like such an array of diversity within our own cultures that it's even still people don't get. And so that's when I started to go, this is really frustrating that I have to put on an accent, even though I do have an accent, but I had to work to get rid of. That's a whole other story.
That's a whole different story, right? 100%.
But alas, I like the way that I talk, and so when I was behind the mic and it was only my voice, people didn't judge the way that I looked. It was just my voice, and that was very empowering to me. And so that's It's like, again, privilege of being in front and being judged by one way more than another, or can I just keep it to my voice? That feels to me very safe. But, I don't know. It's
I
another
love
thing to
it.
consider.
I love it, guys. I want to leave you knowing that, fam. Go follow Elsie somewhere. pick a spot. Uh, she's everywhere. What's the best place for them to reach out or just see what you're up to?
You know what? I think as of right now, I'm building something. And if you go to elsie.link/mm, it's where I'm building stuff. It's a new website. It's called Multimodalee. And it's two E's at the end, Doc Rock. Two E's just for you. Multimodal E with two E's at the end.com. But that link that I gave you all is just like to sign up. And if you just sign up to get my in quote newsletter that hasn't really quite started, there's a lot of things that are happening on that site and will be. I'm building a media business and stuff like that. Or follow Captivate. Right now I'm like community sort of I'm leading creators and helping the community over at captivate.fm, and I'll be doing some really good stuff there coming up soon. So that's another
That's
way
so
to keep in
cool.
contact with me.
I'm launching a new newsletter and I'm relaunching the community very soon. So I've been hot at working and stuff too. So yeah, I feel you. Like, I mean, something about building mode is so good for us ADHD
Yeah,
people.
so I'm like behind the scenes, like at some point I'm gonna get all this stuff out. I promise y'all.
Oh yes, it's a lot of work, man. This was so good. We definitely have to have you come back and do a follow up, family. I want to leave you guys with a couple questions. What about this interview surprised you? What do you feel about this standing in your sovereignty, standing, in the place where you live? You know that song is in my head now. Like, what about that is challenging you? And how are we going to apply this month? Now, these are important questions because next week when Katie and I jump on, we're putting it to work. We're going to put everything that we've been told today to work. And of course, if we have follow-up questions, I'm going to send out the signal and be like, hey, listen, Matt want to know, because, Matt
right.
will always have questions. Hey, Matt, in the chat. And
That's right.
Oh my God, thank you so much. And thank you for allowing me to get personal for a second.
You bet.
Unexpected, but it was just as we were talking and you were saying the things, I was like, yo, that one hits me. I had to put it out there in these streets. So sorry, people. I love you guys. And I love you, E2. This has been quite amazing. Okay, Flow Riders, let me put you on. If you have anything that you want to get in contact with us, go over to flow, FLOW.ECA2Ms.com. You can leave review, you can leave questions, and you can even drop in that audio or video question. And we got mailbag coming up, so get over there and check it out as soon as possible and let us know what you think. This has been an absolute blast. I've had so much fun. I enjoyed you guys for coming in to help out. And I have to say, much mahalo to E2. You are absolutely the best. Thank you guys. Please, people, go follow her. She's like seriously cool. Y'all just don't know this, but she's seriously cool. All right. You know what we say around here? Flow Riders out.